This is just Bob Bowman, and I'm coming at you with another video. The topic of this video is, most people are full of shit. Now, why did I make this video? I'm going to talk about a situation that I had recently and how it affected the way that I think about things currently and how things have been going with me currently to come to this conclusion of what I'm saying. Now, I knew a guy for almost 14 years. We met in college. And before I met him, I will say that I personally had a misunderstanding about the LGBT community. And I was really Bible heavy and really church heavy at the time. And I didn't look at the lifestyle in a positive manner. And I've said things in the past that wasn't good about it. I used to make rap songs where I would make jokes about it. It wasn't like in seriousness, but it still was hurtful and harmful to people, which is what I learned later on in life. And so I changed the way that I did things and I looked at things, and I was like, well, I won't do that anymore. And you know, I took accountability and I changed my ways. And when me and him talked, he talked to me about his experience growing up, the things that he had to go through. He was heavy in the church, so he had that feeling of not being accepted for who he was for a long time. But he finally found his niche in life. He's doing very well as far as I can see. Like, he's on a higher social economic status than I am. And, you know, I always gave him respect, you know, like I know that he's a gay man and me, I'm a straight man, but I always looked at him as just being a man and gave him respect as a man. And, you know, he is more on the democratic leaning side of things, and me, I'm more on a conservative side, even though I consider myself a moderate. I know that within the so-called black community, they will look at me as being a conservative, the way that I view things, even though I know that I'm more of a moderate. But anywho, that's neither here nor there. But anyway, he put some comments up about this basketball player, Jalen Ivey from the Chicago Bulls, that got cut from the team after he made some statements concerning the LGBT community. And I didn't have a problem with him saying that it was wrong for him to do that, which I will agree. Some things that you need to keep to yourself, even if you think it, it's no need to express it publicly. And you have to deal with the consequences of what it is that you say when you say things publicly. And so he said it publicly. He dealt with the backlash of it. He lost his basketball contract, and he's dealing with the consequences of it. And I said that eventually he's going to learn what it is that he needs to learn from the situation. He's going to grow. He's going to become a better person. That's the way that I look at it. And I'm like, and he's going to learn, you know, sometimes you can't just say things out loud, regardless of how it is that you feel. And it's okay to have opinions, but sometimes you need to keep those opinions to yourself. And then he's also going to learn something that I had to learn, is that, yes, the Bible says that certain things are wrong, but it's not on us to judge other people. The Bible says things that are wrong so we can do self-reflection on ourselves. The only time that we can pass judgment on others if their lifestyle or their situations are directly affecting us or indirectly affecting us, then we can pass some judgment on it. But if that person is living their life and it has nothing to do with us, we have to still treat those people cordially, and we need to do self-reflections on ourselves, because all of us are messed up in a certain way. All of us do things or have done things that's very messed up, and we all have to take accountability for it and to work on ourselves so we can improve, so we won't do it as much or we won't do it at all, including myself. And I said this in a comment in response to him, and also said that it was problematic for him to accuse Jalen Ivey of being part of the LGBT community on the down low, because in his personal experience, the guy that I'm talking about, that I was friends with, he said that he knew some athletes back when he was in college that they said they weren't that way, and he hooked up with them on a DL, even though these men were messing with a lot of women. And I said, yeah, that's true. And that's not, and I'm saying that that's not to say what it is that you personally experience in your life has no validation. It's very valid. However, just because that happened to you doesn't mean that that situation is valid for every single situation. And I reminded him of the conversations that we had back when we first met in college. And, you know, eventually he took my comment down from his post, and then he directly contacted me through Messenger, and he told me that he thought I was full of shit. He said that I was a religious nut. He said that he thought that I was insecure and that my sexuality was in question. And I was, in my mind, I'm like, this is a guy that I respected regardless of how it is he personally chose to live his life or who he was as a person. And he just took a big dump on me. And it showed me what his character truly was and what he really thought about me. And when I had the chance to think about it, I was like, yeah, he was never my friend. He was only somebody that observed me and to see if what he suspected about me was true or not. He didn't really like me, and he really didn't care for me as a person. And so, you know, I said, man, like, your reaction to this is very disappointing. Like, I didn't expect this from you. I thought we had an understanding. And he's just like, well, this is how it is. And if you don't think the way that I do, I don't want to be associated with people like you, and you can unfriend me. And so I unfriended him, and I also blocked him. And I realized that he was full of shit for a long time. He was full of shit when it came to being so-called cordial or friendly with me. He never really liked me from the beginning. He was just trying to figure me out and to see if, because he's that way, if I'm that way, and I was never that way. And he found out that I was never that way. And I said that it was problematic for people to throw labels on other people because they have thoughts and opinions that they don't like about them, because I went through that experience myself, because I wouldn't date and I wasn't attracted to certain types of women. And I made no bones about that. And I've been honest about that. And I still go through what I go through because of the decisions that I made in life. And so when he says that I'm insecure about my sexuality, he's wrong, because I know I'm a heterosexual male. I know I like women. I know that I don't deal with a lot of women here in the States because of the situation that's going on with me. But I'm not going to talk about too much of my personal life, you know. But I know that if I was gay, I would just come out and say it, because it's more acceptable now than it ever has been. It's accepted even in the churches that used to condemn it back in the day. Shoot, it was accepted even back when they were condemning it. They were just hiding it. And I understand that aspect of it because I used to study under ministry, and I had an opportunity to see some of the deviant behaviors that some of these perverted pastors have. Unfortunately, that's part of the church culture. That's one of the reasons why I'm not part of the church anymore. So, with that being said, he's full of shit, you know. But then I'm like, most people are full of shit. There were times in my life that I was full of shit, and I can admit that and take accountability for it. And I've changed, and I've become myself more and more as a person. I know that there's certain things that I can't express openly and honestly in certain environments because, hey, I get shut down real quick. So I've learned how in certain environments to not stir the pot too much. Sometimes I gotta like put that opinion out there, of that real opinion out there, regardless of who likes it or not, because I'm not going to be a follower of some bullshit when I see bullshit. Most people are full of shit. They think they're leaders, but they're really followers, and they're only following what's popular and what's going on. They don't really have a mind of their own to think the way that they want to think. That's the same thing with the so-called feminism or the feminists. A lot of them are full of shit because they say they want equality, but then some of their viewpoints and talking points, it's like, no, they don't want equality. They want to dominate. They want to rule over certain men, the type of men that they think they should rule over. And when those men don't comply to their standards or their the way that they think, then they're like, oh, this guy's a misogynist, even though they're operating out of misandry. Me, I know that I lean towards men as far as like us being the patriarchs and us, being the leaders of the family and things of that nature. However, I understand that the way that things are going on in society currently, that type of thing isn't going to work that much anymore. It has to be more egalitarian. However, some people think that egalitarianism is women controlling and dominating the households, and that's totally not true. And I will argue that point, and I would challenge them on that point every time I get a chance to do that. When a woman say, oh, these men only judge us off our looks, so we should judge them off of money, I'm like, there's been plenty of times where I was judged off of my looks. Plenty. So if women were judging me off of my looks, why the hell can't men judge women off of their looks? I know that that's harsh to say, but that's the reality of it. So in my opinion, I'm like, men shouldn't just judge women off their looks. They should also judge women based off of their incomes as well. So we can become more egalitarian when it comes to that point of view. But women will hate that point of view because they're full of shit. They're hypocrites. The ones that don't understand or don't want to understand my point of view when it comes to that. So that's how it is. And it was a woman that the Passport OG talked about on his channel, where she talked about all the men that's going to Medellin, they only going to do X tourism, and they comparing women that go to Jamaica that does this or does that, and she was like, it's not the same. And I've done research because those women just happen to go down there and they just happen to find something like that. They don't go out there automatically looking for it. When there's books that were written that talked about that. Literal books that talked about how women go down to Jamaica to make purchases of male, you know what. But that woman that had that point of view, she was full of shit. She wanted to use her beauty as a weapon to demonize the men that were attracted to her that she didn't like, so she could shame them for going for the other women that they liked. Because she was down there in Colombia, and since she spoke English, she had a slight advantage over the Colombian women. But she was from America, so she had that mindset of the modern woman. So she didn't like most of the so-called average men. She wanted those top 1% that was coming down there. But those top 1% that was coming down there usually wouldn't go for somebody like her because they have an abundance of options. So since she couldn't get what it is that she wants to shame the men that she don't like, to take out her anger and her frustration. And I know so many women that are like this. But this is the society that we live in. I'm choosing to take accountability, and I know that because of certain preferences that I have and certain ideas and thoughts that I have, some people are going to say, oh, that guy's full of shit. He don't care about the black community. And I would say to a certain extent, you're right. Because when it comes to my personal life, I don't care about the black community. I'm going to do what's best for me. But I do care about the black community to a certain extent, even if you don't think so. But that's how it is. And this is what it is. This is the reason why I have ended all relationships with every single group and organization that I've ever been a part of. Because I'm not going along to get along. Because I'm not full of shit like that. And with that being said, this is just Bob Bowman. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm out.